Brothers and sisters, just to continue with the great Dr. St. John of the Cross, I sort of ran out of time yesterday with these videos, and so I just want to linger a little bit because he has some things in his writings that are pretty luminous, pretty radiant, you could say, challenging, but nevertheless incandescent for us to understand a profound mystery about the role suffering and mortification in our life, in terms of how that is the path to receiving greater and greater light, greater penchant for Christ himself and for God, and to really through suffering, through the cross, that is inescapable for every human being in all sorts of ways and degrees, learning how to embrace that, and in fact almost like the saints, to desire it, not for suffering's sake, but for the intimacy that such suffering brings to the soul. And this wise perspective, the wisdom of the gospel, the wisdom of Jesus Christ himself, teaching us as the wise one, as the eternal one, as the one who knows us not just from the outside but from the inside, knowing how ultimately how we will flourish. He taught this paradox, Jesus himself, on the Sermon on the Mount, about beatitude. It's really about self-forgetfulness, and that involves the cross, as I was saying yesterday, to learn how to look to the other, to come out of our egoism, out of our self-enclosed little worlds, our preoccupations with self, to look at the needs of others, to look at God ultimately, and see other people in him. And this will involve the cross. This will involve suffering, to come out of that self-enclosed world that we incline to because of the effect of what we mean by sin. By original sin has this stain on our hearts, on our intellect, on our will, bending it towards disordered love of self and disordered love of creatures. And so, as I was saying yesterday, John of the Cross speaks of the great nada as the great liberator, to ask God for the purifying fire of his love to come out of that. So yesterday, we just give an image. So I said I had met this really wonderful lady early on in the year, and we were speaking about many things, and she was giving me great advice in terms of her understanding of St. John of the Cross. And she was just saying, just as a general remark, she was saying, Father, stay in the fire, stay in the fire. And this woman talking of her own personal experience, her profound trials that she had been through in life, the great sufferings that she went through. But she went through it with Jesus. She went through it united to him in grace. She went through it, with the assistance of the very nearby presence of the Blessed Mother Mary. And she's speaking from her own experience in the same way St. John of the Cross was speaking and saying, stay in the fire. Stay in the fire. Because in that purifying fire of which is really, you could say many things, the trials that come our way, but also the commitment to live the Christian life to its extent, not in a superficial, mediocre way, because they have too many mediocre Christians, and this is something I try and say to myself, and I'm not subject myself to mediocrity, and so it's always that challenge, Lord, give us that virtue of magnanimity. It's a difficult word. But let us be magnanimous, with ourselves, generous, giving ourselves, doing great things for the Lord in the sense of great spiritual hunger and desire to find union with God, and to love others to the extent that Christ has loved us on the cross. And so stay in the fire. She said, stay in the fire. And then she gives this example of John of the Cross, that John of the Cross talks about, as an image, of a log of wood being lit on fire, kind of like as an image of our purification, our journey to be transformed into grace, into the divine life of God, and into the very fullness of Christ's life. It's like a log, as the log burns, it starts to get ugly, and it spots, and it gets charred, and then eventually it becomes flame, becomes a raging flame. And it's like that in our life, as God is purifying us, sometimes our life can get very ugly in different ways, and sometimes recognizably so to others, because of whatever way that he has led us. You know, to maybe sometimes we need a profound humiliation to really humble us, to really realize I need God and that I can't do this on my own. And that may look like a life falling apart completely. So many times in pastoral ministries, I see this. But it's God's doing a mysterious work, because those souls do love God. But it hurts like hell. But the fire is searing, you know, it's going into the wood, it's charring it. So here's some few words of St. John of the Cross. He talks about that we must then dig deeply in Christ. He is like a rich mine with many pockets containing treasures. However deep we dig, we will never find their end and their limit. Indeed, in every pocket, new seams of fresh riches are discovered on all sides. And he talks about this infinite depth of Christ that we could search